Before we dive into this thrilling story, I invite you to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any of our engaging narratives like this one. Now settle in and immerse yourself in this world of appearances, power and dignity. The ballroom of the King Mansion shimmered with golden lights that reflected off crystal glasses held by hands adorned with expensive jewelry. The orchestra played a classical melody that floated through the air like fine perfume, while guests, senators, business tycoons, and celebrities moved about like peacocks flaunting their plumage. Isabella Torres stood near one of the marble columns, observing everything with brown eyes that revealed no emotion. Her cream-colored dress, simple and unembellished, starkly contrasted with the designer outfits of the other women present. Her black hair was styled in a low bun, secured only by a silver clasp that had belonged to her grandmother. In her hands, an untouched glass of champagne served more as a shield than a drink. "Ah, so this is the bride." Victoria King's voice sliced through the air like a knife as she approached, her $10,000 red dress swirling around her. Her expression was a calculated mix of disdain and false cordiality. "Darling, you do know this is an engagement party, not a corporate happy hour, right? Where did you buy that dress? A discount department store?" Laughter erupted around them. Isabella felt the gaze of the crowd shift to her like accusing spotlights, but she maintained her posture, just as her father had taught her years ago. "In a storm, daughter, stand firm like an oak." "Actually," Isabella replied calmly, "it's a piece by an independent designer whose sustainable work I admire." Victoria rolled her eyes, the exaggerated gesture ensuring everyone noticed. Sustainable. How charming a euphemism for cheap. She turned to her circle of friends. "Nathaniel has always had peculiar taste." A woman with a heavy pearl necklace stepped forward. "And where do you usually buy your clothes, dear?" Isabella smiled slightly. "I shop where people don't need to buy their confidence." A momentary silence hung in the air, soon broken by Victoria's forced laughter. "Sharp tongue. I hope my son knows how to tame it before the wedding." Across the ballroom, Nathaniel King was animatedly chatting with a group of businessmen. Tall, with golden hair and a smile that could make anyone forgive his arrogance, he seemed deliberately to avoid looking Isabella's way. When one of the men pointed her out and said something, Nathaniel laughed nervously and took a long sip of his drink. Isabella felt the impact of that laugh like a silent stab. The man she planned to marry not only allowed her to be ridiculed, he participated in it. "She's clearly with him for the money," someone said loud enough for Isabella to hear. "Look at her. No class, no style. Probably comes from some broke family trying to climb the social ladder." Isabella tightened her grip on the glass. Her distorted reflection in the champagne showed a woman who appeared calm, but her eyes held a storm. Adrian Cole, the King family lawyer, approached with the confidence of someone who always gets what he wants. His immaculate Italian suit and Swiss watch were extensions of his calculating personality. "Miss Torres," he pronounced her last name as if it were a foreign word unworthy of proper learning, "I must say you're present. Nathaniel mentioned you work at some tech company?" "Yes," Isabella replied simply. "Torres Global Tech." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Torres? What a coincidence, although I doubt you have any relation to the company. That surname doesn't hold much weight in the business world." Isabella's eyes sparkled with something that, had Adrian been more observant, he would have recognized as danger. "Names rarely reveal a person's true value, Mr. Cole. Actions do." He laughed, dismissing her with a wave of his hand. "Cheap philosophy doesn't buy influence, dear. But I suppose it's fitting for someone in your position." Isabella smiled enigmatically, a gesture that momentarily unsettled the lawyer. Across the ballroom, Victoria King stepped onto a small stage and requested everyone's attention. Her voice echoed through the sound system, authoritative and proud. "Dear friends and colleagues, today is not just the celebration of my son Nathaniel's engagement to—" She paused deliberately, looking at Isabella. "His chosen one. It's also a day of triumph for the King Group." The guests applauded politely, glasses raised. "I am pleased to announce that we have just secured a $950 million contract with Torres Global Tech, run by some mysterious CEO who never shows her face in public." Victoria smiled broadly. It seems even tech nerds recognize the supremacy of the King Group in the market. More laughter. More applause. Isabella stepped forward. "A contract with whom?" she asked, her voice almost lost in the chatter. No one noticed the irony in her words except for a middle-aged man observing from the corner of the ballroom, holding a glass of sparkling water. James Harper, CEO of Harper Dynamics, narrowed his eyes with renewed interest in the woman in the simple dress. Victoria continued her speech, highlighting how the King Group had conquered Torres Global, as if the company were just another trophy on their shelf. Nathaniel, of course, was instrumental in the negotiations, she lied shamelessly. His natural charm and business acumen are unmatched. Isabella watched her fiancé step onto the stage, accepting compliments with a practiced smile. His eyes never met hers, as he thanked everyone for the opportunity to expand the family empire and promised even more impressive results after the wedding. When the orchestra resumed playing and the guests returned to mingling, Isabella finally set her untouched glass on a nearby table and stepped out onto the mansion's terrace. The cool night air was a welcome relief from the stifling ballroom. Leaning against the stone railing, she pulled a small worn photograph from the hidden pocket of her dress, herself at 16, standing next to her father in a boardroom, both smiling. She ran her thumb over the image when she felt a presence behind her. "Quite the party," James Harper remarked, keeping a respectful distance, "though I imagine you're seeing it from a rather unique perspective." Isabella quickly tucked the photo away. "Everyone here sees only what they expect to see, Mr. Harper. And what do you see, Miss Torres?" Their eyes met. "I see people so concerned with appearing important that they've forgotten how to be relevant." James smiled. "Fascinating. Almost as fascinating as the fact that the CEO of Torres Global Tech is here being treated like a nobody, while everyone celebrates a contract with her own company." The silence that followed was eloquent. Isabella neither confirmed nor denied, but her gaze said it all. "Your secret is safe with me," he assured. "For now." 3 weeks flew by in a whirlwind of wedding preparations. The King Mansion had been transformed into a fairy tale setting, complete with imported flowers, ice sculptures, and a dance floor built especially for the occasion. Isabella remained strangely calm throughout the process, allowing Victoria to make every decision, from the menu to the color of the ribbons on the chairs. Her passivity irritated her future mother-in-law, who expected some pushback to assert her power more openly. "Don't you have an opinion about anything?" Victoria asked one day, exasperated, as Isabella examined the wedding dress the matriarch had chosen, a piece so extravagantly ornate it cost as much as the GDP of a small nation. "I have many opinions," Isabella replied, running her fingers over the heavy fabric. "I just choose carefully when to express them." Victoria narrowed her eyes. "You're strange. Always so composed. Almost like you're playing a role." Isabella smiled. "We all play roles, Mrs. King. Some are just more obvious than others." On the eve of the wedding, Nathaniel finally sought out Isabella in her guest room in the mansion. It was the first time in weeks they had been truly alone. "Are you okay?" he asked, not really looking at her. "You've been so distant." Isabella, who was organizing some documents in a folder, looked up. "I'm exactly as I've always been, Nathaniel. Perhaps you've never really seen me." He ran a hand through his golden hair, a gesture of nervousness she recognized well. "Look, I know my mother can be tough, but she just wants what's best for our family, for our future." "And what do you want, Nathaniel?" The question caught him off guard. "Me? Well, I want everything to go smoothly tomorrow. I want our union to benefit everyone." "Union?" Isabella closed the folder slowly. Interesting choice of words. Not marriage or love, but union, like a corporate merger. Nathaniel sighed impatiently. "Don't start with that. You know how it works in our world. Marriages are strategic alliances. They always have been. In your world, perhaps." He moved closer, placing his hands on her shoulders. For a moment, Isabella saw a glimmer of the man she had initially fallen for. Charming, seemingly sincere. "Let's make this work, okay? The day after tomorrow, all this stress will be behind us." Isabella nodded slightly. "Yes, the day after tomorrow, everything will be resolved." He smiled, relieved, and left the room without noticing the determined expression that took over her face as soon as the door closed. That night, Isabella made a call. Her voice was firm and professional as she gave precise instructions to someone on the other end. Confirm press attendance. Make sure the projector is set up and tested before 10 in the morning. And Marcus, ensure the official statement is ready to be sent at the exact moment. She hung up and walked to the window. Below, staff members rushed to finish preparations for what promised to be the wedding of the year. Tiny decorative lights dotted the garden like fallen stars. Isabella touched the silver clasp she always carried with her. "Dad," she whispered to the night, "tomorrow I will show them what you taught me." The wedding day arrived with a perfectly blue sky, as if specially ordered by the kings for the occasion. The family's private chapel was filled with white and gold flowers, and each of the 200 selected guests was dressed as if for a royal audience. Isabella stood alone in a room adjacent to the chapel, already dressed in the elaborate wedding gown chosen by Victoria. A professional makeup artist had transformed her face with layers of foundation, shadow and contour, following the matriarch's specific instructions. "You're unrecognizable," the makeup artist remarked, admiring her own work. "Like a fairy tale princess." Isabella studied her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at her didn't resemble the CEO of Torres Global Tech at all. She looked exactly like what Victoria wanted, a decorative doll for her son to display. "Perfect," Isabella said, surprising the makeup artist who had expected some objection. As the first notes of the wedding march began to play, Isabella took the bouquet of white orchids and walked alone to the entrance of the chapel. There was no one to lead her down the aisle. She had dispensed with that tradition, much to Victoria's dismay, who suggested some distant cousin of Nathaniel could do the honor. Guests rose as she began her walk down the central aisle. Murmurs of approval and a few surprised glances followed her progress. With the heavy makeup and extravagant dress, many hardly recognized her as the same simple woman from the engagement party. At the altar, Nathaniel awaited with a confident smile, dressed in a suit that cost more than the annual salary of many of the staff serving champagne outside. Beside him as the best man stood Adrian Cole, whose approving smile made it clear he considered the marriage an excellent deal. Victoria King occupied the seat of honor in the front row, wearing a silver-toned ensemble that rivaled the bride's dress in extravagance. Her evaluating gaze swept over Isabella from head to toe, and she nodded in satisfaction at the transformation. The priest began the ceremony with words about union, commitment, and mutual respect that sounded hollow in context. Isabella maintained a serene, almost distant expression as the traditional vows were recited. When the moment came for the priest to ask if anyone opposed this union, there was a brief, expectant silence. Then Victoria King stood up to everyone's surprise. "Before we proceed," she said in a clear, firm voice, "I believe there's something everyone would like to know." She turned to Isabella. "Dear, I have a simple curiosity. How much is your family worth exactly? I mean, in terms of net worth?" A shocked murmur rippled through the chapel. The priest looked uncomfortable but didn't dare interrupt the matriarch king. "Victoria," her husband murmured, trying to pull her back to her seat. "No. Richard, it's a perfectly reasonable question. After all, we are uniting our families." She smiled, but her eyes remained cold. "So, Isabella, how much?" Isabella looked calmly at her future mother-in-law. "Why does it matter now, Mrs. King?" "Because," Victoria raised her voice so everyone could hear, "I believe our guests deserve to know what kind of person is joining the King family. Someone who showed up to our engagement party wearing second-hand clothes and who clearly doesn't belong to our social circle." Several guests began taking photos with their cell phones. Nathaniel, instead of defending his fiancée, took a step to the side, creating physical distance between them. "Mother is right," he finally said, his voice betraying a mix of shame and relief. "I think everyone deserves to know the truth. This was," he gestured between himself and Isabella, "a mistake. I let myself be carried away by, well, it doesn't matter now." Isabella felt all the masks fall away in that moment. Nathaniel's public betrayal didn't surprise her, but it still hurt. She saw camera flashes capturing the moment, heard muffled giggles, noticed the triumph in Victoria's eyes. With deliberate movements, Isabella handed the bouquet to a stunned bridesmaid and walked over to the priest. Gently, she took the microphone from him. "You're right," her voice rang clear and confident through the speakers. "This wedding was a mistake, and it ends here." A stunned silence engulfed the chapel. Victoria smiled victoriously, believing she had managed to humiliate the bride into abandoning the wedding. Several guests were already furiously typing on their phones, eager to be the first to spread the scandal on social media. How embarrassing for her, someone murmured. I always knew she couldn't handle the pressure, another commented. Isabella, however, didn't seem like a humiliated bride fleeing her own wedding. There was a dignity in her stance that baffled those present. She pulled a small remote control from the hidden pocket of her dress and pressed a button. Immediately, a large screen descended from the chapel ceiling, surprising everyone. The projector hidden among the floral arrangements lit up, and a corporate image appeared, the logo of Torres Global Tech, followed by an official statement in large, clear letters. Torres Global Tech terminates $950 million contract with King Group due to fraud and disrespect. The shock was instantaneous. Exclamations and murmurs quickly grew louder. Victoria King paled, her face transforming into a mask of horror as Isabella stepped back up to the microphone. "Allow me to introduce myself properly," she said, removing the silver clasp and letting her hair fall naturally. With a handkerchief, she wiped away some of the heavy makeup. "I am Isabella Torres, CEO and majority owner of Torres Global Tech. The CEO you mocked, underestimated, and attempted to humiliate." The silence that followed was almost palpable. Victoria staggered and had to lean on the pew to prevent herself from falling. "This is impossible," Adrian Cole stammered. "The CEO of Torres Global is someone who never shows her face in public?" Isabella completed, quoting Victoria's words from the engagement party. "Yes, by personal choice and corporate strategy. Something that allowed me to observe how people behave when they think they aren't being watched by someone with power." On the screen, images began to appear. Isabella in corporate meetings, receiving innovation awards, always discreetly out of the spotlight, signing important contracts. A flashback invaded Isabella's mind, her at 16, sitting in an imposing boardroom beside her father. He handed her a silver fountain pen with the company logo. "One day all of this will be yours, daughter," he said in a gentle but firm voice. "Always remember, in the business world, many confuse power with truth. Don't fall into that trap. The truth is always more powerful than the appearance of power." Back in the present, Isabella watched the expression of absolute shock on Nathaniel's face. You are the Torres?" he stammered as if the words made no sense. All this time, Isabella confirmed. "I thought that maybe, just maybe, you loved me for who I am, not for what I have or represent. I was mistaken." Victoria partially regained her composure and stepped toward the altar. "Isabella, dear, obviously there's been a terrible misunderstanding. We would never—" "Please," Isabella raised her hand, interrupting her. "Spare us the spectacle, Mrs. King. I have recordings of every insult, every moment when you and your family publicly humiliated me." On the screen, images from the engagement party appeared. Victoria mocking Isabella's dress, guests laughing and pointing, Nathaniel standing apart, allowing it all to happen. "The contract with the King Group is officially cancelled," Isabella continued. "And to answer your question about how much my family is worth, enough to buy and sell your company 10 times over, without significantly affecting our cash flow." Adrian Cole took a step forward, his face a mix of panic and calculation. "Surely we can resolve this in a civilized manner. It's just a business contract that can be renegotiated." "No, Mr. Cole, it's about character. Something that clearly has no price in this environment." Isabella looked directly at Victoria. "You wanted a marriage as a strategic alliance? Well then, strategically associating myself with people who've demonstrated such character would be a catastrophic mistake." Murmurs in the chapel grew as Isabella walked down the central aisle toward the exit. Some guests, sensing the wind shifting, tried discreetly to greet her or show support they had never offered before. Victoria King ran after her, desperation evident in every movement. "Isabella, please, think about what you're doing. This contract is vital for the King Group." Isabella stopped and turned slowly. "I know exactly what I'm doing, Mrs. King. I'm keeping the promise I made to my father to never compromise my values for financial gains or social status." "We can reconsider everything," Victoria pleaded, her arrogance completely dissolved. "We can make the wedding happen. Forget this incident." "The wedding?" Isabella laughed softly. "Do you really think I would marry a man who publicly betrayed me at the first sign of pressure?" Nathaniel finally reacted, stepping forward toward Isabella. "You can't do this. You can't just destroy everything we've built." "We built nothing, Nathaniel. You built an illusion, and I made the mistake of believing in it." She looked at the guests, many of whom seemed uncomfortably aware of their own role in the humiliation they had witnessed. "And to be clear, the contract that your family celebrated will be transferred to Harper Dynamics, effective immediately." As if responding to a cue, James Harper entered the chapel, impeccably dressed in a navy blue suit. His face wore a serene expression as he walked toward Isabella. "I think this is my cue," he commented softly, offering his arm to her. News spread rapidly. On the guests' phones, alerts began to sound. The King Group's stock was plummeting in real time, while those of Torres Global and Harper Dynamics surged dramatically. Guests started to leave in a hurry, not wanting to be associated with a family that had just lost everything. In minutes, the chapel that had been so full emptied almost completely, leaving only the Kings, some close family members, and a handful of confused staff. Nathaniel, watching his world crumble, advanced furiously toward Isabella. "You planned this from the start, didn't you? Used me, used my family." "No, Nathaniel," Isabella replied calmly. "I truly loved you. You chose money and status over any real feelings. No one will ever love you for real," he spat the words with venom. "Just your money. You'll die alone, without family, without true love." Isabella didn't respond verbally. Instead, she pulled out the small, worn photograph she always carried, her young self with her father smiling proudly. "I am never alone," she finally said. "I carry values that are worth more than any fortune." James Harper watched the scene with interest. As Isabella turned to leave, he gently took her hand. "For someone as observant as you, Miss Torres," he said in a low voice, "you must have noticed my interest goes beyond business." Isabella studied him with keen eyes. "Should I assume you're talking about a potential merger between our companies, Mr. Harper?" He smiled. "I'm talking about building something together. Something that starts with mutual respect and genuine admiration. The rest will come naturally if it's meant to be." She returned the smile, the first genuine one of the day. "I admit I'm intrigued by that proposal." As they exited the chapel, they left behind the ruins of an empire that had thrived at the expense of others' humiliation. In the days that would follow, the consequences would be devastating for the King family. Victoria would lose her privileged social circle. Adrian would be fired from his firm when news of his involvement in the scandal came to light, and Nathaniel's reputation would be destroyed forever. Isabella moved forward, her company stronger than ever, and her life fuller than anyone could imagine. She had learned a valuable lesson about the true worth of people and, more importantly, about her own worth. Months later, in a discreet interview for a business magazine, Isabella finally shared a message for those who had been belittled or silenced. "You are enough. You always were. The struggle isn't loud. It's constant and it's yours." And so we reach the end of this captivating story about dignity and true value. If you enjoyed this narrative, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments. Stories like this will continue to come your way with the same quality and emotion. Until next time.